The courtroom buzzed with mean laughter from rich people. Michael Carter sat with his expensive lawyers, a nasty smile on his face. He was ready to leave his wife Emma with nothing. He thought she was just a simple stay-at-home mom from a small town, all alone in the big city. He thought winning would be easy. He was wrong. The moment the courtroom doors opened and a line of black SUVs pulled up outside, everything changed. Michael wasn't just divorcing a lonely housewife. He was starting a war with a powerful family he never knew existed. And today, they had come to fight back. The divorce case of Carter versus Carter was happening in Manhattan Court, a building that smelled of old wood and expensive cologne. To Michael Carter, the smell was sweet. It smelled like winning. Michael fixed his fancy Italian suit, looking at his Rolex watch. He was a good-looking man the way a wolf is good-looking, smooth, dangerous, and cold. At 38, he was the CEO of Carter Technologies, a company he had built. Yes, his wife Emma had helped him, but he chose to forget that part today. He wasn't thinking about the late nights she stayed up helping him write business plans. He wasn't thinking about how she took care of him when he got sick from stress. He was thinking about his girlfriend Lisa, his 24-year-old assistant, waiting for him at a nice hotel. And he was thinking about how much he enjoyed crushing people. "Look at her," Michael whispered to his main lawyer, Mr. Peterson. Peterson was famous in the legal world for destroying people in court. "She looks like she's going to cry. This will be done before lunch." Mr. Peterson laughed, a dry sound. "Easy win, Mike. We crush her. She signs the papers saying she won't ask for money, and she goes back to whatever small town you found her in. She has a free lawyer, for God's sake. A free lawyer against me." Across the room, Emma Carter sat alone. She wore a simple gray dress that looked old. Her brown hair was pulled back tight. She looked tired. Her hands were folded on the empty table in front of her. Next to her sat a young, nervous man named Tim Miller. He was a court-appointed lawyer who looked like he just finished law school last week. He was moving papers around nervously, dropping his pen, picking it up, and dropping it again. "Mrs. Carter," Tim whispered, his voice shaking. "I really think we should have taken the first offer. $5,000 is better than nothing. Mr. Peterson is going to destroy us. He'll say you did nothing for the marriage and that you cheated on your husband." Emma didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the judge's chair. "I didn't cheat, Tim. You know that. Michael knows that." "It doesn't matter what's true," Tim said, panic in his voice. "It matters what they can prove or make up. They have photos, Emma. Fake maybe, but photos. They have people who will lie about you. They're going to destroy you." "Let them try," Emma said quietly. Tim stared at her. For a woman about to lose everything, she was strangely calm. It wasn't a peaceful calm. It was like the quiet before a storm. Michael leaned back, stretching. He caught Emma's eye and smiled meanly. He said goodbye, without making a sound. She didn't blink. She just watched him, her eyes dark and impossible to read. Judge Henry Brooks entered the room in his black robe. The guard called everyone to order. Judge Brooks was a man who had seen everything, and he looked particularly bored today. Another rich husband leaving his wife. It was normal in New York. "We are here for the case of Carter versus Carter," Judge Brooks said, adjusting his glasses. "Mr. Peterson, you may begin." Peterson stood up, buttoning his jacket. He walked like a hunter. He went to the front of the room and spoke loudly. "Your Honor," Peterson began, his voice loud and dramatic. "We are here today to end a marriage that was built on lies. My client, Mr. Michael Carter, is a successful businessman, a man who worked hard to build an empire. And who did he bring with him? This woman." He pointed at Emma like a weapon. "Emma Carter. A woman from a small, nobody town in Wyoming. A woman with no education, no background, and no money. My client, out of the goodness of his heart, married her. He gave her a life of luxury. Nice apartments, cars, expensive clothes. And how did she thank him?" Peterson paused for drama. The courtroom was silent. She thanked him with laziness and cheating on him. People in the courtroom gasped. Most were reporters Michael had told to come embarrass Emma publicly. "We have proof, Your Honor," Peterson continued, waving a thick folder. "Statements from hotel workers, receipts. While my client was working 18-hour days, Mrs. Carter was meeting other men." Michael put on a face of fake sadness, looking down. "It was perfect acting. We are asking that Mrs. Carter get no money from this divorce," Peterson declared. "We want her out of the apartment immediately, and we are suing her for damaging my client's reputation and causing him pain." Tim, the young lawyer, looked like he was going to throw up. He stood up, his knees shaking. I object, Your Honor. This is crazy. Emma, Mrs. Carter, has been a good wife for 10 years. Sit down, Mr. Miller, Judge Brooks sighed. You'll get your turn. Peterson smiled at Tim. The defense has nothing, Your Honor, because the defendant is nothing. She has no family to help her, no one to speak for her, no money. She's a gold digger who got caught. Michael leaned over to Peterson. Perfect, Mr. Peterson. Really perfect. Did you see her face? She's frozen. She's done, Peterson whispered back. We'll have the papers signed by noon. Emma sat perfectly still. She reached into her cheap purse and pulled out a small buzzing pager. It buzzed once, a harsh sound. She looked at it, then at the clock on the wall. 10 a.m. exactly. Emma, Tim whispered, what is that? Emma finally turned to her scared lawyer. A small, sad smile touched her lips. I told Michael that I came from a small town in Wyoming. That was true, but I never told him who owned the town. Tim blinked. What? I told him I had problems with my family because they were difficult. Emma continued, her voice suddenly gaining strength. I didn't tell him I left because I wanted to see if anyone could love me for me and not for my last name. Emma, what are you talking about? He failed the test, Tim. Emma stood up. She didn't ask permission. She simply stood, and her whole posture changed. The slump disappeared. Her shoulders went back. She looked taller, sharper, dangerous. Your Honor, Emma said, her voice cutting through the whispers in the courtroom. It wasn't the voice of a beaten housewife. It was the voice of someone used to giving orders that people followed immediately. Judge Brooks looked over his glasses, annoyed. Mrs. Carter, your lawyer will speak for you. My lawyer has done a great job with the lies he was given by the other side. Emma interrupted calmly. But my actual legal team has just arrived. I request a short break to let them enter the building. Michael laughed out loud. Legal team? What legal team? The girl from the grocery store. Peterson rolled his eyes. Your Honor, this is a delay trick. She has no money. The break is denied. Judge Brooks banged his hammer. Sit down, Mrs. Carter. Boom. The sound wasn't thunder. It was the heavy double doors at the back of the courtroom being thrown open hard enough to shake the windows. Every head in the room turned. The atmosphere changed instantly. The air grew heavy, charged with sudden power. Standing in the doorway were 6 men. They weren't court security. They weren't police. They wore black tactical suits, perfect and scary, with earpieces. They moved together like trained soldiers. They stepped aside, making a path. Michael frowned, his laughter dying. Who the hell are these people? Through the path of guards walked a man and a woman. The man was older, maybe in his 60s, but he looked strong and healthy. He wore an expensive charcoal suit. He had silver hair, cold blue eyes, and he carried a fancy cane, not because he needed it, but because it looked like a weapon. The woman beside him was younger, stunningly beautiful, with sharp features that looked like Emma's. She wore a white power suit that looked like armor. She carried a leather briefcase with a gold symbol on it, a lion holding a sword. Behind them came a group of lawyers. Not the nervous, sweaty lawyers of regular courts. These were the sharks that ate other sharks. There were 12 of them, walking together, carrying stacks of files. What is the meaning of this? Judge Brooks demanded, though his voice shook slightly. You can't just break into my courtroom. The silver-haired man stopped in the center of the aisle. He looked at the judge, then at Michael. He didn't look at Michael like a person. He looked at him like dirt on the floor. My apologies, Your Honor, the man said. His voice was deep, smooth, and commanded complete silence. We were delayed by your city's terrible traffic. I am William Rockwell. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens when a bomb drops, but hasn't exploded yet. Michael's face went white. He knew that name. Everyone in business knew that name. Rockwell. The Rockwells weren't just rich. They were the foundation of American business. They owned steel. They owned shipping. They owned media. And rumors said they owned half of Congress. They were old money that had existed before the country had proper borders. William Rockwell. Mr. Peterson stuttered, standing up. They the industrialist? And I, the woman in the white suit said, stepping forward, am Victoria Rockwell Sterling, senior partner at Sterling Hall and Associates. Peterson choked. Sterling Hall and Associates was the most feared law firm in America. They handled international cases, treaties, and divorces of kings and queens. They didn't come to regular court for a tech CEO. "We are here representing the defendant," William Rockwell said, turning his gaze to Emma. His cold eyes softened immediately. "Hello, sweetheart." Emma stepped out from behind her table. She walked past a shocked Tim Miller and hugged the older man. "Hi, Dad." "Dad!" Michael shrieked. He stood up so fast his chair fell over. "That's impossible. She's Emma Jones from Wyoming." William Rockwell released his daughter and turned slowly to face Michael. The look of love vanished, replaced by cold hatred. "She is Emma Rockwell," William corrected, his voice dropping. "She used her mother's last name, Jones, because she wanted a simple life. She wanted to find a man who loved her, not her money. She thought she found that man in you." William took a step toward Michael. The bodyguards tensed, but William just leaned on his cane. "We gave her 10 years, Mr. Carter. 10 years to play house. We stayed away as she asked. We let her live in your modest apartments. We let her drive your regular cars. But then you decided to hurt her." Victoria, Emma's sister, slammed her briefcase onto the defense table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "You didn't just file for divorce, Michael," Victoria said, opening the case. "You tried to embarrass her. You made up evidence. You tried to leave a Rockwell with nothing." She pulled out a document and held it up. "This is a motion to dismiss your fake claims," Victoria announced. "And this," she pulled out a second, thicker document, "is a counter lawsuit." "Counter lawsuit," Peterson managed to squeak. "On what grounds?" "Fraud," Victoria listed, counting on her fingers. "Stealing money from the company, lying in court, cheating on your wife, and, oh yes, trying to trick a federal judge." Michael felt the room spinning. "You're lying. Emma is a nobody. She cooked my dinner. She did my laundry." "She did your laundry," William said, his voice full of disgust. "Because she loved you, not because she had to. You treated a queen like a maid, and you were too stupid to notice." Judge Brooks, realizing how serious this was, cleared his throat. "Mr. Rockwell, while I respect your entrance, you can't simply take over my courtroom. Ms. Rockwell Sterling, you must file paperwork." "Already filed electronically, Your Honor." 3 minutes ago, Victoria said, smoothly, along with a request to move this case to a higher court because of how complicated the money situation is. "Money," Michael scoffed, trying to look confident again. "I'm the one with money. She has nothing." Emma spoke then. Her voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the room. "Michael," she said, "who do you think gave you the money to start Carter Technologies?" Michael blinked. "Angel investors. A group called V Group Holdings." "V Group," Emma repeated. "V as in Rockwell." Michael froze. "My trust fund," Emma said simply. "I approved the investment 10 years ago. I own 49% of your company through shell companies. My family owns another 2%. She smiled, a cold, sharp smile that matched her father's. "That means we own 51%. I'm not just your wife, Michael. I'm your boss." The color drained from Michael's face completely. He looked like a wax figure. Peterson looked like he was having a heart attack. "We are freezing all money from Carter Technologies immediately," Victoria announced, handing a paper to the guard. "We are also serving you with an eviction notice for the apartment. The building is owned by Rockwell Real Estate. You have 24 hours to move out." "You can't do this," Michael screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Emma. "I'm the CEO. I built that company. With my money," Emma said, "and my patience, both of which have run out." William Rockwell tapped his cane on the floor. "Your Honor, I suggest a break. My son-in-law looks like he needs to call his girlfriend and tell her he can't pay for the hotel room anymore." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters were typing frantically on their phones. Tim Miller was staring at Emma with his mouth open. Judge Brooks banged his hammer. "Order! Order! We will take a 1-hour break." As the judge left, Michael slumped into his chair. He looked up at Emma, searching for the woman who used to make him coffee. She was gone. In her place was a stranger backed by an army. Emma leaned across the aisle. "You wanted a war, Michael," she whispered. "The Rockwells don't lose wars. We end them." She turned and walked out, surrounded by her father, her sister, and the wall of bodyguards. Michael was left alone in the noise, the smell of his expensive cologne now mixed with the scent of fear. The 1-hour break was barely 10 minutes old, and Michael Carter was already speeding in his Porsche through Manhattan traffic like a desperate animal. His hands shook on the wheel. "It's a lie," he told himself over and over. "It has to be a lie. Nobody hides being a billionaire for 10 years. Nobody. He grabbed his phone and called Leonard Banks, his chief financial officer, the man who knew all the company's secrets. Leonard, Michael screamed when the call connected. Where are you? I'm at the office, Mike. Leonard's voice sounded strange, thin, stressed. Listen, you shouldn't come here. I'm the CEO. I go where I want. Listen to me. I need you to move the secret bank accounts. The ones in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland. Move it all to the hidden accounts we talked about. Now, there was a long silence. Leonard, did you hear me? I can't do that, Mike. Why the hell not? Because, Leonard whispered, they're already here. The line went dead. Michael hit the accelerator, running a red light. He needed to get to the server room. If he could just delete the files, the evidence of the money he'd been stealing for 3 years to pay for his expensive lifestyle and Lisa's expensive tastes, he might survive this. He could say the Rockwells were lying. He screeched into the underground parking garage of Carter Technologies. He jumped out of the car and ran toward the private elevator to the 40th floor. He pressed his thumb against the fingerprint scanner. Beep, beep, beep. Access denied. Michael stared at the small red light. He wiped his thumb on his jacket and tried again. Access denied. User ID invalid. Damn it. He kicked the steel doors. Mr. Carter. Michael spun around. 2 security guards, men he had hired, men whose paychecks he signed, were standing there. But they weren't smiling. They stood with their arms crossed, looking at him with pity. Open this elevator, Michael ordered. The system is broken. It's not broken, sir, the taller guard said. We've been told to take you to the boardroom. Visitor pass only. Visitor? Michael's face turned red with anger. I own this building. This way, sir. They walked on either side of him, basically forcing him to the service elevator. The embarrassment burned worse than fire. Michael Carter, dragged through the back entrance of his own company. When the elevator doors opened on the 40th floor, the office was silent. Usually, it was busy with workers and developers. Now everyone was at their desks, heads down, pretending to work. But Michael could feel their eyes on him. They knew. The gossip always traveled fast. The glass doors of the boardroom were frosted, but he could see shadows moving inside. He pushed past the guards and threw the doors open. The scene before him made him stop cold. The long table was full. The entire board of directors was there. They were men and women Michael had bullied and manipulated for years. Usually, they looked at him with respect. Today, they wouldn't meet his eyes. At the head of the table, in his seat, sat Emma. She wasn't wearing the gray dress from the courtroom anymore. In the hour since they'd left, she had changed. She wore a tailored navy blazer, sharp and professional. Her hair was down and flowing over her shoulders. She looked comfortable in the leather chair. She looked like she belonged there. To her right sat William Rockwell, looking bored as he reviewed spreadsheets. To her left was Victoria, typing on a tablet. Standing in the corner, looking pale and sweaty, was Leonard Banks, the CFO. You're in my chair, Michael snarled, walking forward. I'm in the chairman's chair, Emma corrected calmly. She didn't stand up. She didn't flinch. And since I represent the majority shareholder as of 45 minutes ago, this is my seat. You can't just take over. Michael slammed his hands on the table. I have a contract. I have protection. Article 15, Section C of your employment agreement. Victoria spoke up without looking up from her tablet. The CEO can be removed immediately without pay if they do something seriously wrong or criminal. I haven't done anything criminal. Michael lied, his eyes darting to Leonard. Emma picked up a file from the table and slid it across the wood. It stopped perfectly at the edge right in front of Michael. Leonard told us everything, Mike, Emma said softly. The renovation costs for the apartment that you build as computer upgrades. The company jet trips to Mykonos listed as client meetings. The jewelry receipts for Lisa labeled as office supplies. Michael looked at Leonard. You traitor. I have a family, Mike, Leonard stammered, wiping sweat from his face. Mr. Rockwell's accountants found the problems in 10 minutes. They offered me protection if I helped. I'm sorry. Michael felt the floor tilting. So what? You fire me. I still have my shares. I have 30% of this company. William Rockwell finally looked up. He took off his reading glasses and folded them slowly. Actually, you don't, William said. His voice was like gravel and thunder. You took out a loan against your shares 3 years ago to pay off your gambling debts in Vegas. Remember that? You used your shares as security. Michael froze. He had hoped that was buried. The loan was held by a private company called Centurion Capital. William continued. Guess who owns Centurion? Michael didn't answer. He couldn't breathe. I do, William smiled. And since you missed your last 2 payments, I took the shares this morning. Your shares are mine. Michael stumbled back, grabbing a chair for support. This is a setup. You planned this. You trapped me. I didn't trap you, Michael, Emma said, standing up. She walked around the table until she was standing inches from him. Her eyes were clear, free of the fear he used to see in them. I gave you a safety net. I covered for you. I used my money to fix the holes you made in the company finances because I wanted you to succeed. I wanted to believe you were just stressed, not corrupt. She leaned in close. But then you looked at me across the breakfast table last week and told me I was dead weight. You told me I was holding you back. Emma's voice shook slightly, not with sadness, but with anger. She was holding back. You wanted to fly, Mike? Fine. Fly. But I'm taking back the wings I bought you. Emma turned to the board. I call for a vote to remove Michael Carter as CEO immediately, while we investigate his stealing. Seconded, said a board member whom Michael thought was his friend. All in favor. Every hand in the room went up. Even Leonard's. Motion passed, Emma said. She looked at the security guards. Please take Mr. Carter off the property. He can't take anything from his office. His personal stuff will be boxed and mailed to wherever he ends up living. Emma, wait, Michael begged, his confidence finally breaking into panic. He reached for her arm. The guard stepped in, grabbing Michael's wrist. Hard. Don't touch her, sir. Emma, please. We can talk about this. I was stressed. I made mistakes. I love you. Emma looked at him. For a second, Michael saw a flash of the woman who had loved him for 10 years. But then he saw a steel door slam shut in her eyes. You don't love me, Mike, she said. You love the idea that you were better than me. Goodbye. She turned her back on him. Get him out of here, William Rockwell ordered. As Michael was dragged out of the boardroom screaming curse words, Emma didn't look back. She sat down in the CEO's chair, took a deep breath, and looked at the board. Now, she said, let's get to work on fixing this mess. The sidewalk outside Carter Technologies was cold. It was a cool New York afternoon, but to Michael it felt like the Arctic. He stood there with no coat, no briefcase, no dignity. The security guards had literally thrown him out the revolving doors. People passing by were staring. Some were pointing. Michael realized with horror that someone was filming him with a phone. He needed to get away. He needed a drink. He needed a plan. He patted his pockets. He still had his phone and his wallet. That was something. He called a cab. Michael Carter, taking a yellow cab like a regular person. The Ritz Hotel, he snapped at the driver. He called Lisa. She was his lifeline now. She was smart. She was connected. And she, unlike Emma, understood the world of high stakes. They could leave the country. He had hidden some cash somewhere, surely. Mike, Lisa answered on the first ring. Where are you? I've been waiting for 2 hours. The champagne is warm. Forget the champagne, Michael said, his voice shaking. Pack your bags. We're leaving. Leaving? What are you talking about? Did you win? It's complicated. Just pack. I'm 5 minutes away. He hung up. He checked his bank app on his phone. He needed to move whatever cash he had before they froze it. He logged in. Balance, $0. He blinked. He refreshed the page. Balance, minus $250, overdraft. What? He screamed, making the cab driver jump. That's impossible. There was $200,000 in there this morning. He tapped on the transaction history. One big transfer labeled court-ordered freeze. No. The cab pulled up to the Ritz. That'll be $22.50, the driver said. Michael handed over his Black American Express card. The driver swiped it. Declined. Try it again, Michael snapped. It's a black card. It has no limit. It's declined, buddy. Try another one. Michael tried his Visa. Declined. His MasterCard. Declined. The driver turned around, his eyes narrowing. You got cash. Michael checked his wallet. He had a single $20 bill. He threw it at the driver. Keep the change. He ran out of the cab and into the lobby. The fancy Ritz, usually comforting, now felt like it was mocking him. He ran to the elevators and went up to the suite. He burst into the room. Lisa was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, annoyed, but her face changed when she saw him. He was a mess, sweating, his tie crooked. My God, Mike, she said. You look terrible. What happened? They froze the accounts, Michael gasped, pacing the room. They know everything. Emma, she's not who we thought she was. Lisa frowned. What do you mean? She's the nobody from Wyoming. She's a Rockwell. Lisa dropped her phone. It landed on the carpet with a soft thud. A Rockwell? Like the Rockwells? Yes. Her father is William Rockwell. They ambushed me. They took the company. They took the house. They took everything. He grabbed Lisa's shoulders. But we can fix this. You have savings, right? We can go to Mexico. I can start over. I have contacts. Lisa stared at him. Slowly, she reached up and removed his hands from her shoulders. She stood up and took a step back. You lost the company? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. They stole it. But I'll get it back. I need you to help us for a few weeks. Lisa laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was a cold, mean sound. Help us, she repeated. Mike, do you know why I'm with you? Because we're perfect together, Michael said, though it sounded weak even to him. Because we understand each other. I'm with you because you bought me a Cartier bracelet last Tuesday, Lisa said flatly. I'm with you because you promised to make me VP of marketing. I'm with you because you were a winner. She looked him up and down, her lip curling in disgust. But right now, you look like a loser. A broke loser. Lisa, don't Lisa me. You're telling me you're up against the Rockwells? You're dead, Mike. They'll crush you into dust, and I'm not getting dust on my Gucci heels. She walked over to the bed, grabbed her purse, and put it over her shoulder. Where are you going? Michael asked, his voice cracking. Out. I have a date with that hedge fund guy, Jake. He's been texting me for weeks. I didn't answer because you were the bigger catch. She shrugged. Now you're just bait. You can't leave me. I left my wife for you. And she turned out to be a billionaire. Lisa laughed. Looks like you're the idiot, Mike. Don't call me. She slammed the door. Michael stood in the silence of the hotel suite. He was alone. Truly alone. A knock at the door made him jump. Hope flared in his chest. Lisa came back. He rushed to open it. It wasn't Lisa. It was Victoria Rockwell Sterling. She was with 2 police officers. Mr. Carter, Victoria said, her voice crisp and professional. She held out a manila envelope. What is this? Michael whispered. I tried to catch you at the office, but you left in such a hurry, Victoria said. This is a subpoena and an arrest warrant. Arrest warrant? Grand theft, fraud, embezzlement. Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. My father doesn't like it when people steal from his family. We did a full audit over lunch. It seems you stole about $5 million from the company over the last 4 years. The police officer stepped forward. Michael Carter, you are under arrest. No, Michael whimpered as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real, Victoria said, watching as the officers turned him around. And Mike? The hotel manager asked me to tell you that your credit card was declined for the room. They'll be keeping your luggage until you pay. I have nothing. Michael screamed as he was led down the hallway past shocked hotel guests. I have nothing. Victoria watched him go, then pulled out her phone. She dialed. Hey, Dad, she said. It's done. He's in custody. Tell Emma she can go home. The pest control is finished. Rikers Island Jail was very different from the apartment overlooking Central Park. The air smelled of cleaning chemicals and unwashed bodies. For Michael Carter, the 48 hours he spent there felt like a lifetime. When he finally made bail, paid for by a shady guy from his gambling days who demanded 40% interest, Michael came out into the sunlight looking like a ghost. His fancy suit was wrinkled, his face was unshaven and gray, and his eyes were bloodshot. He didn't have his Porsche. He didn't have a driver. He had an Uber waiting for him, paid for with a prepaid debit card he had managed to get. Take me to the Motel 6 in Queens, Michael said, getting into the back seat of the Honda. He had one card left to play. The legal battle was a losing game. The Rockwell lawyers were already taking apart his life piece by piece. But Michael knew something the Rockwells didn't. The power of a sad story. In the cramped, musty motel room, Michael set up his war room. He couldn't afford Mr. Peterson anymore. Peterson wouldn't even return his calls. Instead, Michael had hired Gary Fisher, a lawyer whose office was above a laundromat and who advertised on bus benches. So, here's the plan, Fisher said, chewing on a toothpick. He was a small man with a bad comb-over and a suit that was 2 sizes too big. We can't win on the fraud charges. The paper trail is too clear. But we can win in public opinion. The Rockwells are bullies. You're the poor husband who was lied to. Lied to? Michael scoffed, pacing the room. I stole $5 million, Gary. Allegedly, Fisher corrected. But look at it this way. Emma lied about who she was for 10 years. That's fraud. She pretended to be poor so she could test you. That's psychological abuse. People hate billionaires, Mike. They hate the Rockwells. If we tell this story right, you're the victim of a cruel rich family's game. Michael stopped pacing. A slow smile spread across his face. I'm the victim. Exactly. We go to the press. We tell them she set you up. We tell them you only moved the money to protect the company because you thought there was a takeover coming, which technically she did. The next morning, Michael Carter sat across from a popular TV news anchor on the morning show. He wore a simple sweater, looking humble and broken. I didn't know who she was, Michael said, wiping away a fake tear. I married Emma Jones. I loved Emma Jones. For 10 years, I worked myself to death to provide for us. And all that time, she was laughing at me. She was sitting on a fortune, watching me get sick from stress. The interviewer leaned in, sympathetic. And the stealing charges? A misunderstanding. Michael lied smoothly. I was trying to move money to protect it because I noticed problems. I didn't know the problems were her. The Rockwells, they destroy people for fun. I'm just a guy from Queens who tried to build a tech company. And they took it all because I didn't pass their sick little test. The interview went viral. Within hours, #JusticeForMike was trending on Twitter. People began painting the Rockwells as evil villains who played with normal people's lives. The story changed. Michael wasn't the cheating thief. He was a pawn in a billionaire's twisted game. In the apartment of the Rockwell estate, William watched the TV screen, his face like thunder. I will buy that network and fire everyone. William growled, reaching for his phone. No, Dad, Emma said. She was sitting by the window drinking tea. She looked calm, but her eyes were sharp. Let him talk. Let him build his story. He's lying about the family name. Victoria yelled, pacing the room. He's making us look like monsters. The board is panicking. Our stock dropped 2 points this morning. Michael is a narcissist, Emma said quietly. He thinks he's winning because people are listening. But he forgets one thing. What's that? He forgets that I lived with him for 10 years. Emma turned to her sister. I know where he hides his secrets. Not the financial ones. The real ones. Emma stood up. Get the legal team ready. He wants a public fight? We'll give him one. Set up a deposition. Live stream it. He wants transparency? Let's give it to him. Victoria grinned. I love it when you get serious. I'm not getting serious, Vic, Emma replied, walking to the door. I'm getting even. The deposition was scheduled 2 weeks later in a conference room at the Four Seasons Hotel. Because of the intense media interest Michael had created, the judge had agreed to an unusual request. Parts of the testimony could be released to the press, supposedly to ensure transparency given the high-profile accusations. Michael walked in with Gary Fisher feeling like a king. He had the public on his side. He had a GoFundMe for his legal fees that had raised $50,000 from people who felt sorry for him. He truly believed his own lie now. Emma sat across from him. She was surrounded by Victoria and her father's lead attorney, a man named Robert Graves. Mr. Carter, Robert Graves began, turning on the camera. You have stated publicly that you didn't know about your wife's wealth and that you only took company money to protect the business. Is that correct? That is correct, Michael said, leaning into the microphone. I was trying to save the company from what I thought were outside threats. I had no idea my wife was the threat. And you claim you were a faithful, loving husband who was emotionally abused. Absolutely. I loved Emma. I would have died for her. Emma didn't react. She simply slid a small USB drive across the table to the court reporter. Exhibit A, Emma said softly. Gary Fisher frowned. What is this? We weren't told about digital evidence. It was obtained yesterday, Emma said. From the cloud backup of your personal phone, Michael. You really should have changed your password after I left. Password 123 is hardly secure. Michael went pale. That's invasion of privacy. It's company property, Emma corrected. The phone was paid for by Carter Technologies. The data belongs to me. Robert Graves plugged the drive into a laptop connected to a large screen on the wall. Let's play file. Voice memo November 12th. The room filled with static, and then Michael's voice rang out, clear as day. He wasn't talking to Emma. He was talking to Lisa. I'm telling you, Lisa, it's almost too easy. The stupid cow doesn't suspect a thing. I just signed the transfer for another $1 million. I'm going to bleed this company dry, declare bankruptcy, and leave Emma with the debt. She's so desperate for my approval, she'll sign anything. I can't wait to dump her and get a real life." The silence in the room was deafening. Michael's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The victim's story he had spent weeks building evaporated in 10 seconds. "And let's look at this one," Emma said, motioning to the screen. An email chain appeared. It was between Michael and a known corporate raider. Subject: selling out Emma. Body: once I strip the assets, you can buy the shell for pennies. I'll make sure the wife takes the fall for the IRS audit. She's clueless. I need the cash for the gambling debts in Macau. Gary Fisher closed his notebook. He looked at Michael with pure disgust. "You told me you were innocent." I. Michael stammered. "Those are fake. AI generated. They're verified by 3 independent forensic data firms," Victoria interrupted. "And we have the gambling receipts from the Venetian Macau to match the dates." Emma leaned forward. The cameras were rolling. She looked directly at Michael, her eyes burning with cold, hard truth. "You weren't the victim, Mike. You were the parasite. You didn't just steal my money. You stole 10 years of my life. You made me believe I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't pretty enough. You broke me down so you could feel big." She stood up, towering over him. "But here's the twist you didn't see coming. You said you wanted to leave me with the debt? The Rockwell auditors found a clause in the corporate rules you wrote 5 years ago to protect yourself. It says that any officer found guilty of fraud is personally responsible for all company debts." Emma smiled. "Carter Technologies is currently in debt to V Group Holdings for $40 million. Since you're the one who committed the fraud, the debt isn't the company's anymore. It's yours." Michael felt the blood leave his head. $40 million, plus interest, Victoria added cheerfully. "You will go to prison, Michael," Emma said, her voice final. "And when you get out, you will spend the rest of your life working to pay me back. Every paycheck, every dime. You will never own anything again. You're not just broke. You are owned by me." Michael looked at the camera, then at his lawyer. Fisher stood up. "I'm quitting as your lawyer," Fisher said. "I don't represent liars. You can't leave me." Michael shrieked, grabbing Fisher's sleeve. "They're going to destroy me." "No, Michael," Emma said, turning to walk out. "We aren't going to destroy you. We're going to let you live the life you were so afraid of. You're going to be poor. You're going to be a nobody. And everyone will know exactly who you are." Emma walked out of the conference room. As the door closed, Michael slumped onto the table, sobbing. It wasn't the fake crying of the TV interview. It was the gut-wrenching, terrified sound of a man who realized he had fallen from the top of the world and hit every branch on the way down. 6 months had passed since the deposition that destroyed Michael Carter's life. The media frenzy had finally died down, replaced by acceptance of his guilt. The hashtag Justice for Mike had vanished, replaced by memes mocking his tearful breakdown and the revelation of his cruel emails. The world had moved on. But for Michael, time had stopped. The sentencing hearing was held in the same courthouse where Michael had once laughed at the idea of divorcing Emma, believing he held all the power. But this time the room wasn't filled with his expensive lawyers or supporters. It was filled with the heavy silence of the inevitable. Michael stood before Judge Brooks. He wore an orange jumpsuit, the standard uniform for federal prisoners. The prison barber had shaved his head, making him look 20 years older than 38. He had lost 30 pounds. His skin was pale, his posture defeated. His eyes were hollow, darting nervously around the room, still looking for a savior that wasn't coming. Emma sat in the gallery, surrounded by her father and Victoria. She wore a white dress, simple but elegant, a stark contrast to the drab gray she had worn 6 months ago. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like a survivor. She looked like a queen. "Michael Carter," Judge Brooks said, looking down from the bench with zero sympathy. The judge adjusted his glasses, reading from the thick file before him. "You have pleaded guilty to 3 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of embezzlement, and 1 count of lying under oath. You betrayed the trust of your investors, your employees, and most shamefully, your wife." Michael didn't speak. He just stared at the floor, his hands shaking in the handcuffs. "The prosecution has recommended the maximum sentence," the judge continued, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "And frankly, I see no reason to go lower. You are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison." A gasp went through the few reporters in the back. 15 years. It was a lifetime in the world of finance. By the time he got out, the world would be completely different. Furthermore, the judge added, peering over his glasses, you must pay back $42 million to Carter Technologies and its parent company, V Group Holdings. Your assets have already been sold, yielding about $3 million. The rest will be taken from any future money you earn until the debt is paid. The gavel banged. Bam! It sounded like a coffin lid slamming shut. As the guards moved to take him away, Michael turned. He looked at Emma for the first time in 6 months. He didn't look angry or manipulative. He didn't look like the shark who ate weaker men for breakfast. He just looked pathetic. A broken man realizing he had broken himself. Emma, he rasped, his voice rough from disuse. I'm sorry. Emma stood up. She walked to the railing that separated the audience from the court floor. She looked at the man she had wasted a decade on. She looked for anger, hatred, the desire for revenge. But she found none of it. All she felt was distant pity. I know you are, Mike, she said softly. You're sorry you got caught. No, he choked back a sob, tears streaming down his face. I had everything. I had you. Why was I so stupid? Because you thought power was something you took from others, Emma said, her voice clear and strong. You didn't realize that true power is what you give. I gave you everything, Mike. I gave you my heart, my trust, and my family's money. And you threw it away for an illusion. She turned to leave. Emma, he called out, desperation creeping back in as the guards grabbed his arms. Will you visit me? Emma stopped. She looked at her father, who gave her a supportive nod, leaning on his fancy cane. She looked at her sister, who was checking her watch, ready to conquer the next boardroom. Then she looked back at Michael one last time. No, Mike, she said. I have a company to run and a life to live. Goodbye. She walked out of the courtroom, the heavy oak doors closing behind her with a definitive thud. Outside, the air was crisp and clean. It was spring in New York. The trees were budding, and the city felt alive. The photographers were waiting at the bottom of the steps, cameras flashing, shouting questions. Mrs. Carter, how do you feel? Is it true you're taking over as permanent CEO? What's next for the Rockwell Empire? Emma stopped at the bottom of the steps. She put on her sunglasses, shielding her eyes from the glare. She looked at the sea of microphones. My name, she said, smiling for the cameras, is Emma Rockwell. And what's next? Everything. She got into the waiting limousine where her father was pouring 2 glasses of sparkling water. You did good, kid, Williams said, clinking his glass against hers. You handled him with grace. Better than I would have. I would have bought the prison and turned off the heat. Emma laughed, a genuine, happy sound. That won't be necessary, Dad. Living with himself will be punishment enough. So, Victoria asked, flipping open her laptop as the car merged into traffic. We have a board meeting at 3. The Asian markets are opening. We need to discuss the expansion into Tokyo. The numbers look good, but we need a steady hand leading the way. Emma leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. She thought of the small town in Wyoming where she had tried to hide. She thought of the lonely nights in the apartment waiting for a husband who didn't care. She thought of the fear she used to live with. And then she let it all go. She opened her eyes, and they were bright with purpose. Let's do it, Emma said. I have some ideas about Tokyo. The end. And that is how Michael Carter learned the hardest lesson of his life. Never underestimate the quiet ones. He thought he was crushing a powerless wife, but he was actually waking a sleeping giant. Emma didn't just win her freedom. She reclaimed her identity and her empire, proving that dignity and truth are the most powerful weapons of all. She showed the world that while money can buy silence, it cannot buy loyalty, and it certainly cannot buy class. If you enjoyed this story of ultimate justice and karma, please hit that like button. It really helps. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new story. What did you think of Emma's revenge? Was it enough, or did Michael deserve worse? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.